All right, welcome everyone to a new show of the Joy of NFTs. Welcome, welcome. For those who are here for the first time and you don't know what this is about, this show is to open up the conversation between artists and collectors in the NFT space and also provide a glimpse into the creative process of the artist. So at the end of the episode, or towards the end of the episode, we'll have a little challenge where the artists here are going to start a sketching process and show us a little bit of the creative process while they create a piece live in front of us. So, without further ado, today I'm super excited to be joined by Empress Trash or Drea. She is a multi what how do you call yourself? I
Multi-versatile.
multi-versatile. Okay, I was like multidisciplinary, but that's not it. It's
Well,
multi-versatile
yeah.
uh, artist and amazing human being that I had the privilege to meet in person, and that's how this whole thing got started. And then we also got Wessel. He's an abstract artist joining us today. And then we also have collector Danielle. She's also the co-founder of the Femme Lady Squad and goes by NFT Ignition on Twitter. And just badass all around. Check her out on Twitter if you haven't. Um, so glad to have you guys today. I think this is like a really good group that happened kind of organically. I only know so much about you. So for those who don't know you, Empress and Wessel and Danielle too, can you just tell us a little bit about your background? Like how long have you been doing art and like where you're at now?
Yeah, I've been doing art since I was a kid, and it's been like the only constant in my life. I actually left home at 13. I moved in with like a family friend that they're like were a more affluent family, and they took me in because I was like a really good artist and like they saw a lot of potential in like where I could go. So I was really privileged in that, coming from like a really bad background to like be put in that for a few years to like kind of learn how to navigate a different type of space than what I was raised in. I went to private art school right out of college and I dropped out because the socioeconomic gap was just like too much for me. Like coming from poverty and being with like a lot of rich people, it just didn't jive. And then my 20s, I just like made art and like did a lot of stupid stuff. And then I got my BFA in like my late 20s, 30s in painting. I moved out to California. I'm originally from like Minnesota, Iowa, and then I moved to the Bay Area. I was in Oakland for almost a decade, like 7, 8 years, and there I really like put myself in the art world out there. Like I worked with like so many different artists. I even worked on a show with Ai Weiwei, who is like this super famous Chinese installation artist. Like not my work, but I helped put his work together. And I was in like an art collective with Tom Franco, the Firehouse Art Collective, and I also ran like underground shows out of my house pre-COVID. And then COVID happened, and like all of that stopped, and I got like this emergency fund from the city, like a mutual aid fund from Oakland to help artists that were like impacted by COVID. And then I happened to find a job as an art appraiser because I do have my 4 year degree. And that's where I found out about NFTs. And one of my coworkers said the magic words of like, have you heard of NFTs? And I went home and I researched and I was like, this is it. This is everything I've been waiting for and
Mhm.
looking for. And that was last year, like February. I dipped my toes in it. I didn't get any attention, and I got angry for a minute because my ego. And then like I refocused and just like watched people. Like I found artists that I admired. I saw how they did it, and then within like a few weeks, I sold my first NFT right before my birthday last year. And
Oh
this last
yeah.
year has been crazy ever since. And now I'm here and getting to talk to you, which I really appreciate and
Hell yeah, that's
for.
awesome. We'll dive a little deeper into like the whole, you know, first interaction with knowing about NFTs and like researching and all that. But Wessel, while you catch your breath there, go ahead.
I'm trying not to cough over here. Sorry.
Drink your water and then introduce yourself.
I think that is a pretty good introduction. So yeah, are you finished, Empress? I don't want to cut in or anything.
Yeah,
awesome.
definitely.
So yeah, how to describe my journey into basically the NFT world is what your the point is.
Well, your
correct?
background, I know that you've been doing art for like over 10 years. So, you know, tell us where you're from, like what kind of art did you do before, and then kind of you can end it where you're now with this, like with NFTs and that journey.
Damn. All right. So I find it like I'm still in the process of trying to understand my journey because like I've always had like a seed of that kind of like artist desire inside of me, but it wasn't necessarily fostered until like the more recent the more recent past. Like as a kid, like I was doing like drawings and sketches, nothing like really complex or really, it was always like the beginnings of stuff. And it's just like everything kind of stopped there. I got involved in photography as a kid, took a bunch of pictures and stuff like that. But my real artistic journey, I would say, began like after moving to Japan as an English teacher. Uh, um, there's where like I started getting into photography and stuff like that. And like again, I had no idea like what an artist was or anything like that. These are all like recent discoveries for me. I'm going on this really crazy wild journey, ass backwards and stuff like that. I started just by doing versus thinking about it. And so like a lot of my artistic journey up until about 10 years ago is like what you said, was kind of where I got a more of an official start, was kind of, I think, a gathering of experiences and energies and ideas and so many different things. So I spent a lot of like my 20s and stuff like that traveling and living in Asia and stuff like that. But about 12 years ago, when I moved back to the United States, I'm trying to think of how to compress this story because there's all these little side tangents that come in that kind of affect the thinking and the courses and the paths and stuff like that. But I got back about 12 years ago. And this is kind of like where the seed started to begin to grow again, unconsciously. Like I was starting in photography. I got back, like I had a camera while I was in Asia. I got back, I partnered with a friend in a business. We were doing a nightlife magazine at that point. He'd been doing it for like 6 years. And so I came in from like Japan with all my business experience and, you know, just kind of this ability to take photos and stuff like that. And like as we got into it and I started to look at like the layout of the magazine and everything, I basically realized we had not a good photographer, not so many good writers. And so as a business partner, and I'm like, well, I got to cut up, like take up the slack. And so I started to tap into something from like my childhood, which was like the photography and the drawing and the writings and all these different things that really hadn't had any like context or meaning. And so at this magazine, like I fired the photographer, took all the stuff, got into commercial photography, doing food stuff. And that was kind of me tripping and falling down the rabbit hole because I had to get a camera that was going to be worthy to take the pictures. And so I ended up spending and buying a 5D Mark III from Canon, which was like 4K back then. It was just like, fuck it. I was in the United States. I had no job. I just partnered in a magazine with a friend of mine that it's like it was established, but there was no real revenues and all of this other stuff. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. And I'm just like, that was like my big step really getting into art without even fully realizing it. Because that like knocked me down the rabbit hole over the years of like getting into fashion photography, like finding this interest in like artists like Avedon and Mapplethorpe and just like that's like I was just entranced by this world of like being able to create these different things and these moods and these feelings and stuff like that. And tumbled in Los Angeles through like the fashion world and all this other jazz and photography. And finally was so disillusioned that it was like, I think 4 years ago where I went from like a photography kind of writing vibe of like expressing and figuring things out. Like I haven't even shown any of that, like 4 or 5 years of crazy stuff. But it's like I fell into like painting and drawing because like I have a notebook that basically is like a sketchbook where I hadn't drawn in years. And it's like the first page, like I wrote on the front of it because I was in a bad place, in a bad headspace, like where the bad headspace. And I think a lot of us unfortunately understand that. And it's just like to get all of my feelings out and trying to figure out what the fuck is basically inside of my head. And from there, it was even deeper tumble into getting into like painting in acrylics and like drawing more with like charcoals. But I'm still living in kind of like a single room environment. But back then I was living in almost a fucking closet. And so it's just like painting like these abstract acrylics and this like my bed literally took up 3/4 of the room, could only open the door. And here I'm like fucking trying to paint on all this acrylic shit. But it was like, again, like this tumble. And 3 years pass, and like gotten nowhere. I was just starting to get enough of a collection, like 400 or 500 paintings, to approach a gallery to be like, yo, I got some ground, let's fucking talk.
Mm-hmm.
COVID hits. And
Ah.
so the next year, me trying to figure out what the fuck. And then I think it was last year, Jan Feb, my buddy and business partner Box comes to me and says, yo, NFTs. And like Empress, it was just like, woof, just dump right into it. Like, cause I'm sitting there with like no revenues, no incomes, fucking creatively frustrated, like nothing's getting
Yeah.
seen. All of these social media networks are taking all of my value, getting their fucking money out of it. And I'm sitting here like everybody loves my work, but nobody's buying it. And it's just like suddenly
Right.
there's this avenue. And my friend, he looks at me, he's like, yo, this is where the world is going. This is where I'm going. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
that's where I want to be. And so it's just like,
Wow.
I went from painting acrylics and doing all these like drawings and charcoals and all this stuff. And if you look at my Instagram, you can see a flip. And I went
Mm-hmm.
100% digital. I'm like nothing but digital to see where my head can go with this shit. And it's just like, that was about the time that I met Empress. And
That's
it's
about
no,
the time I went completely digital too. So that's one of the I'm like Wessel's and I's story is like really weirdly in sync, which
Mm-hmm.
has always been a reason like I don't know, like I appreciate him because it's like he's almost like this mirror for me. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like we actually we both were traditional and we went completely digital at the same time and we kind of fostered each other in that. So I'm
oh,
really thankful you're
I,
here.
I remember that porch sesh. That was one of the best. I remember that so clearly. Like,
Yeah.
And
Oh,
I,
trying to
and
crush.
that's crazy that you were like so ready to dive in, and then COVID hits, and then this open door of like, hey, you don't
Yeah.
need a physical gallery to sell your
Yeah.
pieces. Actually, you don't need a gallery at all. Like, check this
Yeah.
out. So that was really good timing. I would love, let's dive a little bit deeper into those stories, but before, I want to give time
Yeah.
to Danielle also. I mean, you're a co-founder, creator, marketer. You have like a bunch of different titles. So for those who don't know you, like, can you tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah. So I've been in the NFT space since summer of 2020. I have been a part of 29 projects in that period of time from then to now. Most notably, I'm known for the Fame Lady Squad, which I'm technically not a co-founder of, and I'll explain why. Fame Lady Squad was the first all-female generative profile picture project to ever launched by the first all-female team, or so we were told. About a month later, we found out that it was actually 3 Russian men running the project and not 3 American women like we were told. And we were able to secure the smart contract and the Discord and the layers and take it over from the community, basically. So I am, we call ourselves co-owners of the project and not founders.
Code takeovers.
Yes, we unrunned the community is how I like to put it. But in addition to that, we've really used it as a platform to create more educational resources for women to enter the space. My background is in education. I am actually an artist as well, but once I saw the need for education in this space and how bad it was and how hard it was for artists even just to mint their first pieces, I really dove into that side of it. And it was the same for me. As soon as I found NFTs, I was like, oh, my life is over. This is me now. This is all I'm going to do. There's no turning back. And, I've really enjoyed my time, but it's really been amazing to like be able to empower so many women and put them in a position where they can create revenue for themselves and like a self-sustaining life with NFTs.
And you actually are connected, we met because Empress told me about you because you collected one of the damsels from her collection. What can you tell us about the collecting side of things, of like how did that start, and what attracted you to like Empress collection in particular?
Yeah. So it's funny because before I saw Empress's work, I had been complaining a lot about how skinny all the art was in the space. And even the Fame Ladies, we didn't make the art. They're too skinny. I hate it. I would make them fatter if I could. All of them. But when I saw one of her pieces, I just it resonated with me so much because it was beautiful and curvy, and they were also unique, and it was real. Like, it wasn't just some little stick figure of whatever. And immediately, like, I saw it and I was like, okay, I'm buying this. I didn't even know who you were. I didn't know the story. I didn't know anything, and I bought it. And then I saw, oh, a portion's going to good causes and all that. And then I got to know Empress a little bit more and fell in love with the work even more. But really, it was just the art itself that drew me to her.
Yeah, your damsels collection is definitely
amazing.
accurate representation of what what women actually look like. So that's
yeah,
I definitely can tell. And I keep looking at it. It's this sticker that she gave me, and it's just like so beautiful. Oh, and I got kind of pink hair now, so I kind of
The damsel series is so alive. Like one of the first when was the Empress, you started putting those out. Like there's the movements, those little like jerky like.
You're the one who taught me how to do that. That's why I'm like,
fuck that. When I saw how you used that, I was, and you put in the damsel, and like, you know, when you're talking about like the figure shapes, and it's just like, and then you had the alien ones or the weird, not the weird ones, but like the outliers at the very beginning, and like,
we'll put one right here to show.
Damsels.
Which way do we point?
So what's so funny about it, and I don't know if I've completely told you this, Danielle, but Damsels started as a shitpost on Fame Lady Squad when I found out it was 3 Russian men in a trench coat.
Oh my gosh.
And I
must have followed right after.
Yeah, and like I didn't like, because I was just mad. I was mad yet again. Like,
me too.
Were co-opting women's bodies, and like, you know, that brought a lot of feelings up. And instead of like, it was a turning point for me, because instead of just yelling at the internet, I was like, I'm gonna make art about it. I'm gonna make my own collection depicting women, how I see women, and like the divine feminine and everything. Like, and I still take a lot of that anger and like a lot of like how I feel women aren't being represented like as like women representing women. And I put that in that collection. So, and it's like I purposely do it slow, and I purposely take the time to put it out, because I want the like message to sustain and everything. So it's just like no,
that's funny. I had no idea.
I wasn't intending it to become a big thing, and then people, like, it just was like a few of them, and I'm like, here's my damsels, like, this is, you know, like woman art by woman art, like, you should buy this instead of like stuff men just like, you know, capitalizing on women's bodies. And it like took like quickly, very quickly. Like, I had a lot of friends who bought it, and like the first one sold out, the first drop sold out very quickly. And after that, I'm like, well, now I have to keep making these, because now my friends like gave me money.
Well, it's the commitment to your collectors. It's like, it's important, because it's like, if they've made the investment in your project, it's important.
And let's go back to, okay, so you both hear about NFTs and you're like dive in immediately. But for people that are watching this, there's a lot of skeptical, or like, it's very skeptical at the beginning to trust it, and there's a lot of bad players in the space that give us a bad name. And I think, Danielle, I would encourage anyone to check her out, because you are very much into educating and have like a NFT 101 if you have like literally no idea what we're talking about. But for the artists in particular, like, what was the thing, or like how did they tell you about it in a way that you were like, oh yeah, 100%, I'm gonna dive in? And what was kind of like the first steps that you took to actually get to know what the space was about?
For me, like, it was a coworker, and then she said, well, my boyfriend has been in crypto for a long time, and like, I already knew about crypto. I had friends trying to convince me to get into crypto way back, way back. And I was really anti-technology a long time ago, so like I didn't get into it then. So I already like was kind of familiar with all of that. I mean, I was in the Bay Area. All of that is like tech stuff that's always kind of talked about and thrown around. But specifically the NFT stuff, I didn't know about. I probably would have gotten in way sooner if I would have known about it. But she told me about it, and it's just like, oh, here's some podcasts, like go home and research it. And because she could tell, the reason she told me is she could tell I was miserable working in a warehouse authenticating and appraising art. Like I was not happy there. And like it's like I'm a moody person. Like my emotions are right on my face, and it's really hard for me to like hide that. So I went home that weekend and I just Googled, and I like NFTs, like what are NFTs? What is the blockchain? How do I mint an NFT? What are NFT marketplaces? Like I just like went on like a deep dive Google search, and like every question I would just Google it and find like someone writing about it that seemed like someone reputable. I didn't know at that time that there was a lot of scams and stuff. I just was just Googling. And then I like she told me, my coworker was like, well, you need to be on Twitter and you just need to start putting your stuff out there. And like I was like, okay, I don't like Twitter. I haven't been on Twitter. I've always kind of avoided Twitter. I had like a Twitter account, but like I just never used it. And I was really scared at first, like to be honest, like to put my work out there because there's just a lot of reputation of like a lot of trolls, a lot of like, toxicity within Twitter itself. Um, but once I really started putting my stuff out there and connecting with a lot of different people, like I've connected with bad players along the way, and I've connected with people who are extremely mean to me and extremely misogynistic or homophobic or like whatever. But that's the internet. Like that isn't NFTs. That's just the internet. And that's what I like try to tell people. It's just like if you're gonna be someone out on the internet, period, like you're gonna get that kind of stuff going on. But when I actually started finding other people who are taking NFTs seriously, like Wessel is one of them, Wonder Mundo, Toppy Eaton, a whole bunch of other artists, is when I really started feeling like really connected and seeing the power of the space, because it's like we were all there like early on supporting each other and lifting each other up and connecting and building that trust. And now a year later, like we're still friends, we're still like, like we help each other and we uplift each other because that trust was built, because we weren't trying to sell things to each other, we weren't trying to scam each other, we just genuinely liked each other and the work that we did, and we all found that we agreed on like some very basic fundamental things, and we kept each other going, and all of us are finding success in like the different ways. So I always go back to ending this on ramble of like finding your people within it, because that is the power of Web3. Like yes, there's a lot of money flowing around, yes, there's a lot of knowledge and all of that, that's all great, but like what really keeps you sustaining is finding your community, finding the people that resonate with what you're doing, and like staying with them and like working through things with them and helping each other and process, like, this person said this to me, this person a good player, is this person a scam artist? And it's like, even within my group, like saying I'm coming on this interview with you, NFT girl, like that gives you credibility within my community now, because it's like you're not just another big influencer, you're like someone who's trying to like interview me and Wessel, and like who's trying to uplift us, and that brings a lot to like the people around us too. And I feel like some people like harp on like the tribalism, perceived tribalism or whatever, but I always view it as like the blockchain and like community action, like we're each like a little unit, and then some of us go out and try to connect with other units, and then we all kind of bring it all together. So,
And
sorry,
there's no, you're good. And I think there's like so many different pockets within NFTs, like artists, that people don't realize. They may think that it's just like, you know, generative projects or like PFP projects. And there's, trash art, there is irregular, 3D, 2D art, there's film, there's photography, there's music. So like any type of art it's being developed in the NFT world, and it's kind of creating its own markets, like each pocket. So it's really cool to see like the niche within the niche, and like you said, finding your community that maybe before you weren't able to have in real life. For you, Wessel, how was it for you? Because one thing that stuck out when I was reading about you is that you did photography for a long time. So how you never thought about like, oh, I have all this work, or I've been doing photography for a long time. I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put my photographies up. I'm gonna mint my photographies and do photography NFTs. Instead, you are doing very much abstract digital work. What made you what made you do that, and maybe take us back a little bit when you heard about NFTs and kind of how you understood it.
All right, those are 3 main questions. Let me get to those before you add
Yeah.
on to that, or my head's going to explode.
Yeah, how you understood the NFTs, and then photography, not photography, but what you do now.
All right. So I think it all kind of ties together in a certain sort of way, because I was laughing so hard because the way you put it is, yeah, because I'm like, I was thinking about how much shit I just kind of left in the past just because I want to evolve. I don't know how else to express that. Like for me, like these are some things that are becoming very poignant to me at this moment, because I'm currently working on a glitch series on KO, known origin, and like I've got like 20 pieces minted or something like that, collabs in the chamber, like all the shit lined up, and I'm still making art. Like I've got like 40 pieces done, 20 mint, like I'm fucking done, but I'm like already moving forward, and it's just like there's this weird disjoint going on between my head right now, like evolving all my art and still going while like the story is like way back here, because like why I'm so willing to like move past and not think about it. A lot of my old work is because it's like what interests me is trying to figure out what's inside of my head using like the different tools and things that are available to me. And it's just like why I dove so deep into NFTs was just like, and why I threw down my acrylics and why I don't really talk about much of like my past is because I'm like always interested about what I can do next. And it's like that's why I love being at the edge with people like Empress and like all of our fucking crazy groups of stuff. Like I had a brief touch with the blockchain back in 2017. A friend of mine introduced me to cryptocurrencies and stuff like that. And for a little bit, I did some trading and stuff like that. And I realized I wasn't a short-term trader, and was just going to let my account sit, which was good because that allowed me to fund myself last year when I'm like, oh shit, now I need a mint on ETH because I didn't know about Tezos or anything like that. I'm like, where the fuck am I going to get crypto? I'm a broke ass artist. I'm not making fucking any money right now. But it's just like in 2017, I found that crypto was able to pull it over and then sell it to get my ETH started. And it's just like this digital world, it's so amazing because like Empress is talking about the community, and it's just, it's like Web3 puts it a lot together. And a lot of us, I think, are saying right now, holy shit, this fits me perfectly, because Web2 is all about the information exchange and the money was on top of that. But like the world revolves around money. We can't lie about that. And we need money to move, especially as artists. Web3 puts back in our hands money, like all the content and money that fucking Instagram and Twitter make can now come back into our hands. And so that makes these communities that we build upon trust work, because it's like, I know, like I remember a conversation with Empress talking about the ecosystem being like the coral reef idea, like that we're all like sustainably moving within this space. And it's just like, you know, between the possibilities, and that's why it's just like always evolving is like kind of my mindset and mentality. Sorry to like kind of go on a ramble as well, but there's just like so many aspects within the NFT world, like this idea that is called a scam or a pyramid or Ponzi or any of this stuff. And it's just like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, just look at how it mirrors capitalism directly. And it's like, but in this case, the money goes directly to the people that are creating these worlds of content and ideas. Like in like past the whole flipping idea and the profits and all this other shit, like you have this ability right now to invest directly into the artists and creatives and peoples that are building the worlds that you're dreaming about. Like you want to, like people talk about a better fucking world, like where we can smile and shake hands and trust each other and have these community, like, yo, this is hit right here.
It is.
And it's just like, you know, it's like, yeah, there has to be an influx of capital in from the outside, because it's like, it's not sustainable without that. It's like, no shit. And capitalism is important, but it's like you can do it a better way. You can do it as a win-win situation, and that's why communities like Empress and I are part of fucking work. And we seem like tribes, but we're welcoming tribes. Like you believe in the same things we believe in, which is the win-win. We can all do it fucking together, but not all. Yeah, sorry, I'm ranting. I'll let you get back into your questions before I go too long.
We have a lot of passion.
No,
yes.
I love this. I love that.
Yeah,
And
because
I
it's like
think
I
we're
see
all
success.
nodding. Yeah.
Yeah, I see success stories every fucking day. Like Empress was freed from her shackles. I'm slowly getting free from my shackles. I have a countless list of friends that have literally gone from fuck, where's my rent coming from to I just
Yeah.
bought myself an iPad Pro and I'm making art and building these worlds and these communities. I'm collaborating with people all around the world. Like I don't even know where half of the people I'm working with come from because that's not the important thing. It's just like, who
Yeah.
the fuck are you? What are your ideas? Who are you? Like the anonymity that like the Twitter provides us, it doesn't it's just like we have a chance here and I'm very
Yeah.
passionate about that. So
This will
and
be like a clip on its own. Like we're just gonna
Yeah.
give you the stage because that was like mic drop moment. That's amazing, and I am passionate. Like I share that passion with people in a way. Like I sometimes contain myself because I don't want to seem like the crazy person that's like trying to convince them, because I don't think this is something that people need to be convinced of. I think people need to understand it by themselves and like really see how they can be a part of, because not everyone's an artist, or not everyone has that entrepreneurial spirit within them. So maybe it's something that they still need to find like where they fit in within the space. But for the creative side, I think there's just like endless opportunities, no matter what it is that you're creating. And let's talk about a little bit on the technical side. Like you both are on Ethereum network and also on the Tesos network. Can you walk me through like deciding on both, like which one you start at first, and kind of why that you decided to be on both, and like the pros and cons on being an artist and having work on both networks?
I am staunchly polychain is like what I joke around. So not polyamorous, I'm polychain.
Polychain.
But I think decentralization to me is like everything I've stood for before I knew what decentralization was. Like, and to me, true decentralization is not just being on one coin or one blockchain. Like, there's so many out there. And like, I also do work on near protocol. I've taken a little hiatus. But then there's also like Solana, which I'm going to be probably minting on soon, and like all these different ones. But specifically ETH and Tez, um, ETH, it was just like when I was researching, it's like that's what it was. I didn't
The
know,
main highway.
yeah, I didn't know that there was other blockchains right away. It wasn't until I got involved in the community and started talking with people. And it actually was Kate Kirst, who is an amazing artist, on like she
We
was,
had her here.
yeah.
We had her here. I think it was like episode 3 or 4.
She's so
Anyways,
good.
go see that. She's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
Anyways.
go see that. But she's the one who onboarded me on the Tezos, and she explained it to me as, like Ethereum's kind of like the Uptown Gallery. It's somewhat exclusive, and like you can make it, but like it may take a little bit longer. Sorry, Glitch is here. She had to make her appearance. Um, But she's like, Tezos is like the like dirty underground, not dirty, but like the underground, like more
grungy.
like real like artists just like doing whatever they want, and it's like we're all supporting each other. And coming from West Oakland, which if anyone's familiar with Oakland in general, but specifically West Oakland, it's like the underground punk, like fuck everything authority scene, and that's where I was coming from as an artist. And it's like I saw, like, to me, ETH was like the San Francisco art shows and galleries, and Tezos was like the Oakland scene. And I'm like, yeah, I want to be on both because like I'm Empress Trash. It kind of plays into my name of just like I want to be in these bougie places, but I also like I come from like trailer trash. I come from like nothing, and I'm always going to be like that. I'm always going to love being in like divey, trashy, warehousey, like real gritty things, because that's where I get my inspiration from, and that's where I feel actually at home. It's just like I aspire to like elevate all of that. And so for me, like minting on both, like I think I minted first on ETH, and then within a month I minted on Tezos. And like it fluctuates, like the markets between the two really fluctuate for me, but actually as of like February I've been making more money in fiat terms in Tezos for like 2 months straight now than I have been on ETH sales. And I think it's like also in like it's just there's a lower barrier entry there for collectors and for artists because the gas fees are like nothing. If like when I know like people watching the show may not even understand what I'm saying with that.
It's just the fee that
It's
you pay
to
to
trans
approve a
yeah.
transaction once you're buying things.
Yeah. And I think like especially with like, like the market made it like when the market dips, I feel like my Tezos stuff does better because people are
Mm.
being more scrutinizing of like, oh, do I really want to spend money on gas fees? Like I'll just get her work on Tezos and I'm still supporting her. But
Mhm.
like, like that type of stuff. So I really like I there's a lot of differences between the markets, but like all in all, like I still like kind of approach them like equally. Like I tend to put more additions on Tezos and then I put like one ones on ETH more, but I still put one ones on Tezos and I'll still mint like additions on ETH sometimes. It's just it's an economics thing is what it really boils down to
Yeah.
on that. But also like I really built my community up and met other artists through Tezos. Like I found it way easier to connect with other people through that because I was able to collect because everything
Mhm.
is like the economics make it where it's like even me as someone who's trying to like make my way as an artist, I haven't sold millions yet to just like do whatever I want. Like I'm still figuring it all out, and I make enough monthly to like survive, and then I have a little bit of extra that I'm able to collect on Tez because it's like I still come from that art sales background. I still love art, and I want to be able to support my friends and everything too and get dope art. And Tezos makes that so accessible for me as someone who's not super rich.
Yeah.
And so I would say like for someone who's wanting to like collect and like experiment and like not feel like a lot of money is having to be dumped into it, like Tezos is really like the scene for that. And that's where like I
Mhm.
really kind of found it's almost like a playing field for me of like, well, I can take more risks because
Mhm.
there isn't as much of a cost for me to take these risks. And
Yeah.
that's why I really like it. Yeah.
No, makes total sense. What about you, Wessel?
Yeah, Empress covered a lot of the points. One of the things, yeah, too, that to think about like which chain you go into is like how also like your collectors think about it too, because it's like one of the things that comes up is always is like pricing additions, all this other jazz, and it's
Mhm.
like yeah, how to deal with some of that stuff can be quite interesting if you want to go ETH versus Tez. Yeah, Empress really did just like hit every one of the major points. Like fuck yeah. Because it's like these are the questions that we're asked quite a bit. Like, which one should I do? Should I do ETH? Should I do Tez? And it's just like, yeah, ease of access is Tez straight up. Like, it allows you to play and have fun. ETH is harder to get into because it's a little bit more clubby, and it's just like, then what do you price it? Because it's like then you have the gas fees, and there's a lot of like things you have to think about in your business. And like people ask about the one way to succeed, and it's just like, find your vibe. Like,
Mhm.
Empress's biggest thing, I think, and mine too, is like, where did like, we felt like we were having fun. And it doesn't
Mhm.
mean that necessarily Tez will be your thing. Some people can pop into ETH and they're like, fuck yeah. It's
Mhm.
like, because, yeah, it's like me and like the degen, like, we love these things that we can break. We break shit all the time. And it's
Mhm.
just like, last year, oh my goodness, the summer of just things were broken left and right, small art, and just that, what that
Yeah, we
became this
broke
year.
kind of on purpose,
Yeah,
accidentally on purpose, but it
yeah,
was like it was part of the performance of it.
exactly. And it's just like you have these artists, and that's where things like Tezos allows for to be. Like there's a potential with it being on ETH as well. But again, it's just like where do you vibe in your markets? And it's just
Mhm.
like what kind of access to funds do you have? What capital do you have? Who's your crowd? What kind of work do you do? What do you want to really do in this space? And it's
Mhm.
like choosing those is like you have to really figure out what you want and who you are, because it's like a lot of being in the NFT space, and people sometimes complain about how much social media, blah, 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 that they have to do. But remember, we're direct selling to collectors. There is no intermediary. There's no like gallery front saying, hey, look at how special this person is. We have to be the ones telling our stories. And it's just like, we have to be like understanding who we are, because it makes like, if we're not understanding that and putting that out on whatever chain it happens to be, like if there's the ease of access to like boosh out here and like build up your friends here and then wave over to ETH here, because suddenly you have different collectors noticing you here, so you can play differently here. Like when you talk about the piece that we're going to be doing in like later on, it's just like, oh, it's going to be on super rare, and then it's like, oh, ETH chain, and then it's like there's all these different thought processes that I think Empress and a bunch of us have just kind of been like summed into. Where do you feel good? So
yeah, and I mean, just to go on that more, it's like when I make a piece, except damsels, like damsels is a separate process from like my regular 1-1 art or edition art. But like when I make a piece, I look at it and I'm like, which market is gonna like this more? Is the ETH market or is the TES market? And like there are like some nuances that are really hard to explain, like unless you just do it and like get in it to see how like the different markets like respond to different messaging. And then also for me, like some work I'm like, well, this took me a long, like this I feel is like some of my higher level work, because all artists, like we have, I feel like work that's like really good, like really like this is like, like our Mona Lisa. And then there's other ones where it's like this is like good and I want to share it, but I don't necessarily like feel as confident about it. And I think like a lot of times like my 1-1s are the pieces that I'm like, this is like really like hitting on something for me. This is a really valuable message for me. And I want to make sure like I'm making it clear by how I'm minting it and like valuing it, to make it clear that this message is like the like valuable one for me, because I feel like people just like subconsciously equate like price to like this is a valuable thing, because that's just like market. But as an artist within the NFT space, we have the privilege of pricing our messages essentially, of just being like, this is important, so I'm going to price it 1 ETH. Someone may not collect it for a long time, but it's important enough for me to be like, you know what, this is like a higher price item. Where it's like other things where it's like it just may be like having fun, or I just don't feel as like it's as much I have to like put a clear message out. Like I'll price lower and just put it out there and people still like it and it's a good time and it's like whatever, but it's not as much of like that, like like I really want people to look at this. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
No, makes total sense. Danielle, how do you feel like on the flip side? I mean, I know you're an artist too, but have you seen any of those differences depending on the network that you're navigating? And it's not just Teslas and ETH, it's also Solana is another big one.
Yeah, well, and
That
wax
artists have
too.
been.
I have a lot of friends that mint on wax. I have a couple collections on wax. I feel like that's um, it's similar to Tezos. It's really just where your community is that's important, especially with some of these that don't have as many resources as ETH. Like you can't necessarily Google how to mint on whatever and get 20 resources for these other chains like you would on ETH. So if there's one resource, you have to it has to be a good resource for you and your learning style, which isn't always the case. So it's wherever you have a community of people with you that are in that ecosystem and they can hold your hand while you're minting your first piece or buying your first piece or whatever, that's where you can have the advantage of it. It really doesn't matter the chain. It matters the people 100%.
I love that. And I think one thing that I've been wanting, you're one of the things that you talk about is like trash art, and like it's in your name, Empress Trash, and I've been seeing this term kind of thrown around of like trash art. What is trash art? Tell us about it.
That is a big question. I mean, so essentially, like in the crypto terms, trash art came out of like Rob Ness, Sucking Realm, Max Osiris, who has disowned trash art now, the last I've heard. So I maybe shouldn't put his name in it. I hodl, like bitty, like I can keep listing a bunch of trash artists, but a lot of them were around kind of in the early NFT days, and they like have their stories. I came in later, and my story is a little bit different because like I've been doing like essentially like trash art outside of the crypto space, and then I've been Empress Trash outside of the crypto space, and then I've translated that in and found my community with also like the other trash artists. Like they accept most of them accepted me, and some of them, I mean, it's a crazy community. Trash art is specifically like the idea that Glitch is freaking out. That anything can be art. And to me, trash art really, really means like art that is made from people that are traditionally marginalized or thrown away from like mainstream society. And like I view it as that. Every trash artist you talk to is going to have a different interpretation of what trash art is. And that's kind of the beauty of it in and of itself, because we all are kind of, I think, really fiercely independent. We've all had like our like struggles and our story and our triumphs in it. And we all kind of stand for like this idea of flipping the art world on itself. Like it's kind of a wrap of like Dadaism and like, you know, urinal art and like, you know, pop art and like all of these like art movements kind of thrown in together and being like, we're doing it within crypto, we're doing it within NFTs. Some of us are doing it outside of it too. Like I used to do art installations that were just like trash. And like that's kind of where like, and like I could go into like a deep dive of like where I've been doing trash art outside of crypto, but within crypto specifically, I think we're all like chaotically coming together to like stand for that art can be anything. Art truly can be anything, and in actuality, a lot of the stuff that we throw away and we would normally like throw away from ourselves or throw away that how we throw away in other people is really valuable too. And like I think that's ultimately like what we stand for. I would say Wessel is a trash artist. I say a lot of people are trash artists, whether or not like they like identify as trash artists. But I also joke like I'm Empress Trash, and if I say you're a trash artist and you become one of my artists, then I'm kind of like
Wessel, do you identify as a trash artist, or
I
would
see
you?
that's one of the things I don't know how to label myself because it's just like I just thank you for making me feel part of the family. I appreciate the fuck out of that. Because it's like one of those things, because I don't come from any sort of traditional background of art. I literally just picked up a camera, picked up a pencil, just tried to like, again, this is my work in progress life. And so I like when I do minting, I'm just like, and it asks me category of what I'm doing, and I'm like, hey, dark seems pretty close, or I just don't know, because it's like I'm more interested in what I'm expressing, and it's just yeah, that's the thing. And so thank you.
And a lot of your work is there's a lot of skulls, there's a lot of self portraits that I've seen from you.
Some would argue that they're all self-portraits.
Or maybe that. Yeah, I mean, I want to explore that. Like, where does that style come from? Where you create, because they are like similarities within your editions and your pieces. So, where does that style of like darkness and skulls and self portraits come from?
That's a damn good question. This is like, I know there's reasons, like for the moment, for example, some of the more technical reasons I use skulls and stuff like that is because some of the things that I'm trying to say, like we're all very hung up on labels. Like before, like I don't know what kind of artist I am, like how we self-identify, like female, male, non-binary, like all of these things, like black, white, all of these things become labels, and they create like, we have so many filters inside of us. It's unbelievable. And like, one of the reasons I use skulls is because it takes away all that layering, because a lot of the things I'm trying to say in my work like when I say like they're technically all self-portraits is because a lot of my work that I'm coming to the realization of is just me just trying to understand and like get out these things inside of my head, because it's just like I'm so confused. I'm so I don't want to say the word fucked up because it has like a negative self connotation, but it's just like I don't feel right inside of my head. And so a lot of like when you go into skulls, and some people consider them dark, but then like I just dropped a piece that's releasing on Thursday on KO about my neighbors. And it's just like I have nothing against my neighbors or anything, but there's these deep subconscious things. And I have some friends that I send these pieces to and they see them and it's just like they get the context of the night and they're like, holy fuck. Because like I don't like I'm very interested to see how the art piece goes today, because I'm very much I just pour out whatever's inside of me. And it's just like I'm doing skulls right now because that's the only way I can see to do it. And it's just like it's a frustration of mine. Why can't I do anything else right now? Why am I stuck on trying to see myself? Why am I stuck on trying to see inside of my head through my work? And it's just like part of my process right now is just like being in and accepting that. And it's yeah, I mean, like when I say like I'm slowly becoming aware of what an artist is, it's a weird transformation when you're just like, my job, my life is this, and it's just like that means everything inside of my head, man, that's my job. And so it's just the imagery I use, and some of again, it's like hard to see the story unless you pay attention, because I'm not trying to be obvious. I use a lot of, I wouldn't call them gimmicky, but flashy things, because it's like we live in an age where attention is so fucking fleeting. It's like to get your attention, I literally have to do some very specific things. And they're not cheating or gimmick. It's literally something that artists have done throughout entire parts of history. But it's like that hook in to be able to see and look at these things, because it's like some people will see what they want to see, but it's like if you take a minute, and it's like that's why I love all my friends' art. It's like you take that minute to sit there and pay attention and take in the context, because my entire story is kind of out there, and it's just like why these pieces fit in as art, why they matter, what's the context, like everything is there, color styles, like yeah. Does that answer your question or get like around to it?
No, I think that's just being like extremely vulnerable, that you're just saying that's what's in my head right now and that's what I'm trying to figure out and that's what I'm able to put out there. So that if your head is in a different headspace in the future, maybe that style will change. So yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from.
And that's
And oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and that's where it fits back to that poly style, for example, like Empress as well. We don't fit or try and express a certain way, which makes it, I think, harder for in some ways to connect with collectors, because at least I see my art not as specifically moving into styles, but just finding new ways to get what I was trying to say out. Like I knew like Empress has been a glitch artist in the start. I haven't even touched glitch until just like a couple months ago or something like that. It's just like, I mean, yeah, I'm getting in a circle in my head. So continue with what you want to say.
No, but I wanna echo some of that, where it's like, I mean, I specifically call myself a multiversatile artist because I mean it's a play on like, like metaverse, but then also like I feel like a lot of times like I'm in different realities, so like the multiverse type of thing. Because one thing that I know like me and Wessel share is like we're not religious, but I think we're both fairly deeply spiritual, and like we have like meditative practices. And I think with that comes some like we are like sometimes in touch with stuff that like other people can't perceive. And like that's one of the reasons like him and I think became friends, is because like we kind of touch on some of the same things. Like we go into like some of these similar realities, but like we're interpreting them through our lens, and like we're bringing our energies to it, but we're conduiting it in some way. And I think that comes with being a process orientated artist, which I view him and I and like a lot of people around us as, instead of like necessarily like a technical or like like I have a specific vision that I'm trying to get out. Like that's not really where I'm going with that. Like I've already like personally I've already learned how to paint realistically, and I can render perfectly fine realistically. For me it's about exploring like this kind of like unknown subconscious other alternate reality space, and what comes out I don't always have control over. And that's where I feel like if I try to limit myself to one style, like I can't tap into that energy then, because
but even if it's a different style, it'll always have that like
yeah.
Empress Trash mark
And
or
like
like that Wessel mark,
yeah.
and that's like something that's important for artists as they build like their collection is like it's okay to try different styles, but it still needs to be like uniquely like yours. Like it will always have like kind of like your soul in
Yeah.
it, and that's where collectors are like, oh yeah, that's like a piece that I know it's Empress did it, or I know Wessel did it.
Yeah.
And that when you get to that point of being able to communicate that side of you, no matter what style you're trying out, that's when like a lot of good things happen.
Yeah.
I think this is a really good point to start going into the challenge portion of this show.
Yay.
And I think you're gonna really love the word. So we ask on Twitter, follow me right now at NFT Girl, follow Empress, follow Wessel, follow Danielle at NFT Ignition. And I asked for a word to inspire us in this next portion of the show. And many people replied, but one of them captured my attention, and it was actually Wonder Mundo. You actually mentioned her a little couple minutes ago, but her word was chaos.
Yeah.
So
Fucking wonder.
I think it's a pretty good word for
It
this
is.
episode for what we were talking about. So we'll go into the Zoom and then we'll start the challenge there. All right, and we're back for the challenge portion of the Joy of NFTs with Empress and Wessel. And y'all already know how this is gonna go. We're going to have 10 minutes, and the word for today is chaos, which we're all very familiar with. And and I'm gonna set a timer of 10 minutes so you guys can start in 3, 2, 1, go.
Have to make starting noises or something. Man, hey, Empress, this reminds me of the graveyard or the cemetery.
Yeah, we hung out at a graveyard once and did shrooms and made art.
Oh, shoot.
We're
Dang.
weirdos.
That feels like a weird place to do shrooms.
Wow. No,
Was it
only
nighttime?
graveyard, but shrooms
No.
and graveyard, that's a bold combination.
We're bold people. It was the oldest graveyard in LA, and it's right by Wessel's house. And I kept being like, I want to go, and we did.
You see dead people, or did you see people underneath the graves?
Not really.
Not really.
Great
Because I know
conversation.
I know that there's some people that like when they're hallucinating, they can see, like if they see like their hand, they can see like their muscles underneath or something like that. So I'm like, oh, do y'all see underneath?
You
No.
can't like
Kind of weird, but yeah.
When I'm with people and I'm tripping, it's more like emotions and like some like visual stuff, but it's more emotions. Like that type of visual, I only really get when I'm alone and I'm like meditating and I'm like in my head and like, yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
okay,
certain...
tell us what are you using? What's your tech stack? What do you guys use to create when you start your process?
So I use Procreate and I have some custom brushes that I use. Specifically, like some of my favorite, I adjusted like Tamar painting and Salamanca, but I adjusted them, and mostly like the color is pressure sensitive. So like I choose a color, but depending on how much pressure I do, I can get like a different color because I like using so much color. And I found it really annoying to go back to the palette. And I like having that like pressure sensitivity to be able to like play with like what color it is that I'm using. And that's how I start a lot of my stuff, is just kind of like playing around like that personally.
That's it. What about you, Wessel? What are you using?
Well, my recent process has been kind of using usually, what's the name of this brush? The Blackburn brush. Like I haven't gotten into like customizing brushes or anything like that, but I usually start with like just a general outline of my vibe. Like when you say chaos, like like I said, I'm in a kind of a skull vibe at the moment. So it's just, I kind of use that as a framework for like what I'm trying to build. And a lot of it is very extemporaneous. Like, what does chaos represent to me? What does this moment of like us having this conversation mean to me? Like, how has my day been? Like, what things have gone through my head? What things are processing right now in the back of my head? Because a number of it, it's like, I'm not very good at planning things out at the moment because I don't have the brain space to like take the time, or because there's a lot of things I'm dealing with. And so it's just like, I just let myself flow with whatever's going and just kind of go from there basically. And this is where I start. And then just depending where my vibes are, like usually I'm also listening to music or something like that. And I let that kind of carry and flow with me too, because if I spend too much time thinking about it, like I start getting worried about things or overthinking it, or don't let myself like flow with the moment with it. And that kind of, I think as an abstract artist in my process right now is kind of important. So
yeah,
because if I think too much, then I start judging myself, because it's like we have all the pressures around us that are kind of preventing us from like actually being able to focus. So it's like getting into a flow state is where I'm trying to be.
Well, and just for those watching, this is just the sketching process. Obviously, Empress and Wessel will take the time afterwards to finish this piece, and you guys will be able to see the before and after. So just take this as just what it is, which is a sketching process. Well, no pressure to create your masterpiece within this 10 minutes.
But that was, go ahead, Empress.
But a lot of like why Wessel and I like were very similar processes, because it is kind of jazz. Like he kind of is like, oh, well, we don't have an end vision, but it is very much like an exploration of like the different marks and like what feels right and everything. And like with what I just did, like I have some of these lithograph things where it's like different patterns that I like to add to give some like concreteness to it when I'm like really playing. And then I made some marks, but I was like, oh, like I kind of want this on a separate layer because then I can like play with it. So I like undid it and then redid it as another layer. And then there's these great adjustments within Procreate that you can do. And a few that I use are the halftone glitch and chromatic aberration at the end here, because chromatic aberration is like so cool because you can like get like,
whoa,
yeah, like depend, like that's how I get a lot of like, I'll put things down and then I'll just kind of like adjust the chromatic aberration a lot to get some of the like kind of psychedelic effects. And what's really cool about that is because I'll start in here and then take it, like I'll do a whole bunch of stuff in Procreate, and then I'll bring it into After Effects, which I won't be able to do on here. But if you do like color change animations with like the different chromatic aberration effects, like you get some really cool animation effects that like it's the only way I know how to get them without doing like an intensive like frame by frame thing.
Yeah.
So like a lot of what I'm doing too, because I do bring stuff into After Effects when I'm, especially this piece I will, because I'm trying to work it up more. Like I'm thinking about forward too of like, well, what will look cool if I do like my normal animations in After Effects on them, like the color changes and like some like offset and like different things like that. And yeah, that's a lot of what I do too.
Yeah, that's a very thorough explanation. Danielle, have you ever seen like other artists like create on the spot, like especially digitally? I think people see people create like live on like physical paintings, but have you seen something like this before?
No, not really. Often I've seen just like clips of people making their work, but it's definitely a little different watching like the whole piece being made.
I know, it is like my favorite part, and the before and afters are always like mind-blowing, because you guys usually just create magic out of nothing.
I just realized how similar your glasses are to mine. Like, I think they might be the same.
Are yours from Warby Parker?
No, Zenny, but like the coloring and everything.
Not sponsored. This is not sponsored by any of them. Hit us up if you're gonna get into NFTs though. No,
Yeah.
legit, Danielle, like you and I have like a lot of similarities and we're working on a lot of similar things. So we should
That's funny.
hang afterwards.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm so happy you two have met now. I didn't know you two didn't know each other. That's
I know.
No, I messaged her once. Didn't you have like you were part of like a Christie's or Sotheby's auction or something, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I messaged you back then. I was like, oh my gosh, hey, congrats on being part of that. I was like, another girl in NFTs. I was so excited, and then we never spoke again.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry. Last year I was not good with DMs, and this year I'm trying.
Oh yeah, no,
way more.
I know how it is.
No, but it was meant to be. Our universe ended up colliding. And you guys have 1 minute and 20 seconds, by the way.
Ooh,
oh my God.
Pressure is on.
What pressure? I'm sorry. I'm just sitting here over here smoking my joint and just like, chaos? Yeah.
I just mean like time pressure is all I meant.
Oh no, that's when you gotta like factor in, have like the music from Jeopardy or something like that.
We'll put it on the background. We'll put it right here.
Just sketching stuff together.
The magic of editing.
Man, now you're making me all nervous because I'm like, wait, am I doing my art correctly? You're causing me to
There's no way to do it wrong.
You're doing fine.
I'm doing my art wrong.
You got 40 seconds.
Oh no.
Yellow, purple. You both are very colorful. You guys are doing chaos, very colorful. To be continued. Awesome.
Who knows? That may be becoming a part of the art. Yeah, I'm probably going to continue because I usually finish pizzas at one go. No, pieces at one go. So, especially ones that involve chaos. So as soon as we finish out here, I'm going to finish off my and be like, attack the shit out of this art.
Yeah. And time's up.
No!
I need like a better like sound for when the time's up. Awesome. I see this. I mean, Empress, this is like so your style, and I love seeing how I didn't know you could do. I thought, okay, I don't know what I thought. I don't know how you created these things, but seeing it like with the pressure thing that you were telling me about,
yeah,
that is
really
super cool. That is like, and it's beautiful colors too.
I want to see her screen.
Oh yeah, you can't see each
I can't see his either.
Yeah, you can't see each other's. You'll have to see the episode to see each other's.
Call back.
But no, I love both. Both of you are kind of similar color scheme, using the purples and pinks and some yellows. But bottom line is, I can't wait to see what you guys can come up with. And I am so thankful that you both agreed to be on the show and have just share your journey and part of who you are and why you create and how you create. So I just wanted to say thank you, both of you. Thank you, Danielle, to also coming on and being part of the conversation. This is like my favorite part of just seeing people create and succeed. So I'm just very appreciative of just being part of that journey with you guys. So thank you. And I hope you guys, have a great day, afternoon, wherever you are. And we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you.